ban, pick, ban, and then pick for this tournament. I'll turn to my analysts, the experts on here. Fresh, can you help me out? We got Skyscraper, Chalet, and Border set as our decider. General thoughts?
I love best of threes, Milosh, because you get to see what's the team's identity. Do they pick maps that they like, or do they pick their opponent's weak maps? Now, I can confirm, they picked their opponent's weak maps. WYLDE have picked Skyscraper, which is Liquid's 8th preference map. Liquid in return have picked WYLDE's 9th preference map in Chalet, and then we go to a border decider, which is kind of mid-preference for both teams. I love it when teams do this, because you basically, sometimes you get teams pocketing maps away, looking like they don't play it, and then they pull it out in a best of 3.
Well, Fresh, it's what we spoke about with the maps. Will WYLDE be what we expected? Will they be creative with the maps? Will they play the new maps? And it turns out that we've got that. It is, I would say, from our perspective, somewhat surprising to get the 3 that we've got. But I would also say we're happy with the 3 that we've got, because these are going to be real barn burners. I
think we know that WYLDE, they want to be creative. We know that in terms of their general map pool, they like the newer maps. They like the maps that are less scripted, less kind of, 1, 2, 3 checklist maps. This map pool, this map banning phase fits right into how they want to play.
Yeah, and the thing about Chalet being WYLDE's 9th preference map, is it really their 9th preference map?
I'd go from the statistics.
Have they hid it? Has whatever happened? This is the advantage of being a tier 3 team. You can hide things, you don't have to play things, you play less games.
In the past, Liquid has gone up, I guess at least a different form of this team Liquid has gone up against tier 3 representation. For all the Benelux friends out there, remember Trust Gaming, they went up against them at DreamHack, and look how that went. At least the first match that they had between another best of 3, that's going to be a tough one for WYLDE to still get over, even with these advantages.
I think that's the problem, is that we're playing a best of 3 and not a best of 1, because, we've seen Liquid get upset in the first maps of a best of 3. We've seen Liquid start slowly in the first maps of best of 3 before. On the balance of things, regardless of the maps, I think the map pool and the map ban advantage has gone to WYLDE. I think they've won the ban phase, but I think over the course of 3 maps, Liquid will have enough quality and team play between them that they'll be able to come good in the end.
I think if Liquid don't win it, they will be incredibly disappointed with themselves. I think what you can just expect for a bare minimum from WYLDE, we're going to go out there, we're going to enjoy it, do our best, don't get embarrassed, we'll do our best, and just see where it goes. If Liquid don't win, it will be a surprise. As much as we love the EU boys and we want them to do well, we have to accept what it is.
Yeah, there's no pressure on WYLDE though. That's the thing, is like, in their minds they're already wrote off. They've now got a good ban phase, but they're expected to be stomped by most people here today. They're not expected to win this game, which gives them the freedom to make the plays, because obviously you get teams and they transfer from scrims to officials, and then in officials they get scared to make plays, they get scared to do things. When there's no pressure on and nobody's expecting you, and actually you're the underdog, you can go and do it. You've got the freedom, because even if it doesn't work, well, you was never meant to win anyway.
Now, we've had underdog stories so many times in Rainbow Six globally, be international events, minor events in the past, but also in regional leagues, and somehow these teams keep coming back. Like you said, Fresh, WYLDE has no kind of pressure on them for it. There's no expectations, at least low expectations overall, especially when you go up against Team Liquid. That might be the help, because people say this team is genuinely WYLDE, Tristan. They will play crazy things, not just the map bans. You got Aces and Corey on here that can show up too.
Well, this is why we love Siege. This is why we love Siege. When was, not even against tier 3 teams being underdogs, when was the last time we saw a team win back-to-back international events? We're talking way back to Fabian's era, back in the 1960s. Like, this is a long time ago, and this is why we love it.
It's one of them things, there's always a chance. Like you say, we've seen these underdog stories happen. And it's the first day. And literally anything can happen. All of these teams have started on a level playing field right now. There's no advantages. There's just you, your team, and you've got to go out there and perform.
And that's the advantage that also goes to Liquid's way, because of their support staff that you mentioned, the amount of people and very experienced people that can guide them through all of this. But how well can you prepare against an unpredictable team like WYLDE is the question. Who's got to show up here in map 1 to really make this happen for WYLDE and get it off? Because maybe if Liquid were to take the first map, the game might as well be over at that point. But should WYLDE get the first map win, I can swing things in their way, Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously it's WYLDE's pick, right? So if Liquid win on WYLDE's pick, on, you know, the map that they supposedly don't like statistically and you know, those kind of things, then that, you know, it alleviates that pressure. It's just job done as expected, and I think it's all of the pressure is just on the Liquid players. They're the ones that have to step up.
If they lose map 1, can you imagine what the communication is going to be?
You start
like
thinking, they'll start blaming each other. They'll start, how have we done this? Did we go to the right map? How's the bans gone?
Yeah.
Operator bans for
this is no direct discredit of Liquid going at each other. It's not like they have players that have a history of doing anything like that. It's just if you're against a tier 3 team, you have to be mentally in that zone. Like, we have to win this.
Those operator bans, how do you expect to see, or what do you expect to see on our first map?
Oh, it could be something a little bit funky. Like, we know that WYLDE like to play fast and loose and free, and, you know, they'll either ban in a way that just get the defaults out of the way to enable that, or they might ban something, you know, very specifically, like, you know, a Nomad, for example, if they're trying to get off flanks. It gives them a lot of freedom, I think.
The question for me is what the Liquid ban, because do you go for a generic Thatcher type ban, or do you go for something, have you watched their VODs and you go, actually, they like a bit of Nook at times. Do you go for that? We see it in EUL now.
Oh, Aces sneaking with a Nook.
Exactly. We know that that is exactly his playstyle. That is right up his alley. He did it against us. He embarrassed us a little bit by doing that. We're not afraid to say it. And it's going to be interesting to see what the approach is.
Grenade also overall, but maybe seeing 3 operators. The Nook fits very well into that with 3 sets of nades coming in. The Zofia, the LMGs in general, how well they can shred opponents.
There's never really a bad ban in Rainbow Six at the minute. Like, you could think of a Nook ban, you could think of a Finker ban, and then you've got the default Thatchers, Breachers. You know, there's quite a lot of operators where you can justify a ban. And I think the one thing that, you know, we will expect to see today, obviously we talked about how explosive they are, how fluid they are as a team in terms of WYLDE and Liquid. Let's not forget about Liquid, you know, they're fast-paced, they're aggressive. But there's no real bad ban. They can just either enable themselves that little bit more, or they can choose to bring it back a bit.
Yeah, and like you said, we don't want to discredit Liquid here, but the thing is when you get a tier 3 team like WYLDE at an international event, how can you not talk about them? You have to talk about it, and obviously being EU boys ourselves.
We'll do a lot of talking about Liquid later on.
But of course, I'm sure as we see Liquid come up with creative strategies and plays, we're gonna end up talking a load about them.
And strategies, last bit at least, the conversation. We know how Liquid go about, they have their playbook, all that, but WYLDE is saying fast and loose, but is there any depth to that style?
Can there be depth? You know, like when you've got your IGL and you've lost your IGL for this event, how in-depth can you go kind of strategically?
Yeah, for me,
you've probably just got to allow freedom, right?
I won't judge them on their depth strategy-wise, because there's only so much you can do. Obviously, we don't know how long they've been practicing with Kaneo or so. It could have been a long time. Maybe there will be a lot of strategic depth, but we can't judge them on it. We have to go with, are they motivated to play? Are they excited to play? Will the nerves come, or will it be, right, we're here, we get to play against Liquid, and I'm going to thrive off of that?
Yeah.
Look, we talked about WYLDE, we're really going in depth. EU boys talking about an EU team happens, right? But Team Liquid, who's really got to show up for this? Because they've also brought up, you know, 2 new players that only joined, what, 8-9 months ago, and they've still done very well for themselves.
When you look at them kind of statistically, especially when Ask and Resets came in, they had quite a quiet first event, and don't get me wrong, they still went positive at their first event, which was, you know, at the Invitational. But then, you know, they started climbing. Charlotte Major, they did really well. So it's whether it's a step up or just meet the expectations. I think if Liquid just meet their expectations, where you've got, obviously, you know, you're going to have Nesk and Palu kind of running rampant, taking gunfights, being the main threat to WYLDE. But Ask and Resets, you know, no pullovers, and then you've got PSK kind of just in the back line. He often goes negative for this team. He takes a lot less engagements, quite high survival rate on that team. And I think, you know, for Liquid, it's more, this represents like a banana skin. You know, where you're in another video game and you're going down and you're carting and you hit the banana skin and you slip away, right? I think this game is a banana skin for Liquid. It's like, they should win it comfortably, but they just need to hit their expectations, you know, play pretty default, and they should get through it.
Yeah, as you say, they've got players who are incredibly consistent, all 5 of them, all have a very clear role in the team as well. We were looking at, and obviously PSK had the highest survival rate of any player at the last major. Like, this is a player who's very consistent in what he does. He's very clear. He's the backbone of the team. It's not just Palu and Nesk. It isn't just them. As much as we might want to talk about it and brag about it, and, you know, Palu's career stats are quite incomparable, but we have to see. we just have to see how it goes.
And we won't have to wait much longer. So Tristan, Fresh, thank you very much. Let's call up our casters, see who's on the other side of our camera. It's Blue and XR Troika. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Doing great. It's a pleasure to be here. It'll be my first time casting with X as well, so it's a pleasure to be with you here for the first time for our first matchup of the tournament as well. Liquid going up against Wild. Quite the clash of different reputations here between Wild and Liquid. Liquid, obviously the Titans of LATAM, very much some Titan players on the roster as well. Wild coming in from the GSA, looking to prove themselves very much for the first time on an international stage. X, what do you make of their chances here in this best of 3?
I think there was a little bit of bias on that desk, and I think for me to be calling out bias, it must have been pretty strong. I'm in a very difficult place with this. Obviously, hailing from Europe, I've got to back Tier 3. I love Tier 3. We've spent a lot of time inside of national leagues. I haven't done anything specifically with GSA, where Wild are from, but I know what that culture's like. On the flip side, everyone knows I'm a bit of a LATAM fan. So this is a really difficult one for me because we're looking at Team Liquid. I mean, there's not much more, LATAM than Team Liquid, is there really? And they're going up against a team such as Wild. A very big undertaking for Wild here today. And I'm certainly intrigued to see how it all plays out. Kicking things off on Skyscraper, it was mentioned on the desk. What a strange old map to be starting things out on. I think if you'd have given me 9 guesses, I wouldn't have come up with Skyscraper.
Certainly not the case. And Skyscraper as well still remains a bit of a rarity inside of our games, despite it being added towards the beginning of the year after SI. Ban's already going through, and so far no huge surprises. Zofia going to be an interesting one, though, specifically for Wild there, knocking out something a little bit more comfortable for Team Liquid. But as we go to the Defender bans, things resume normality as we end up with a Mira and Cade ban to round out this first map.
Maverick there to kick things off as well. So I think there's a fear ban. You've got to look at that and you've got to go, there's only one person you're looking at with that. You're looking at Nesk, right? Nesk is known for what he's able to do on Zofia. And of course, with Zofia LMG meta currently, anyone with an LMG is going to be someone that you're going to look to bring. How much of an impact it will have, we will have to see. Rounded out toward the other bands, Miracade leaves a Valkyrie open. A little bit of option there for a bit more information. Plenty of hiding spots on Skyscraper to squirrel away that little bits of utility.
All right, so we're through the pick phase here. We'll see, obviously, once again, we'll have attacker repick here, so still a possibility that Wild can change up a few of their offers. We can start to look at things. No surprises on the initial site selection here as well. Liquid going to go directly into Tea Room and Karaoke. This is the starting point that we've seen a lot of other teams go to for this map, as it still tends to be the easiest to control the overall area, especially as you get down to that final 20 or 15 seconds of the round.
Starting off on defense here for Liquid, it is going to be a little bit of a sort of pace setter to see just how aggressive Wild are going to be here. Obviously, they removed the Maverick, so that does deny a little bit of breaching. That's going to throw things like Bandit into a little bit of relevancy. Obviously, with Thatcher still open, that still leaves a bit of a question mark over it. But we are going to have that little bit of balance here with PSK rocking the Bandit, and of course, Cameo rocking that Thermite.
So getting into it here, Wild going to start to make their first entries. They begin to move forward, clearing out the barbecue area of the map and trying to move a little bit more forward from there. The depth charge going to come out here, going to be a little off the base, though. Liquid still moving around a bit too much. So Corey not going to be able to catch anyone here. Ask, in the meanwhile, is nearly caught, I believe, via another play. Corey might be the one to take him down, but either way, that'll be the smoke on the floor here very early on in the round. We'll have to wait and see if Liquid will be able to bring him back up to keep that utility in check for later on. Liquid overall, though, playing things quite aggressively, and the good news is we can see the smoke has gone down fairly close to the site. Oh no, Resets is going to get picked off here as well, though, so Liquid struggling to maintain their player presence here as they go for an aggressive stance on the first round.
Those nades from below really paying dividends there for Wild here. They've done a lot of damage, and Ace has got himself into a bit of a dangerous position. We're going to see more nades start to fly in. Ask has been rezzed, so those very important Toxic Babe canisters are going to start to come out now, but it's not likely going to be enough. Aces picks off Ask, and that will put an end to those Toxic Babes. Palu does manage to steady the ship. The man count is still going to be in the favor of Wild, though. Everyone just taking a moment to breathe. Ace's aggressive play was a little bit solo. Just waiting for his team to back him up there might have yielded a slightly better result.
Lots of prowess coming in and lots of confidence from Wild here up until this point due to the play being made by both Corey as well as Aces here, but it's all come to a halt now. As you said, just taking a moment to breathe here. Seems like they still have a plan in the works. The smokes end up coming down directly on the inside of Karaoke. Where's the play potential going to come from though? And it might be on the swing, and in fact, there we go. But you still have PSK waiting around the corner with an easy capability to shut this down. Nesk will also grab from down below, being able to take him down, but still, the plant will succeed. Wild will get it onto the ground. Kadeo as well will strike once more, as does Corey, bringing it all into one remaining player from Liquid. PSK in the 1v3, and he will not be able to maintain, so Wild takes the first round.
Also Shield there really providing a lot of value to be peaked off the back of PSK. You know exactly where the player was pre-firing the angle, but you just can't do anything about that bulletproof shield. Great round there from Wild. Really good focus in terms of getting themselves in and getting that diffuser down. And what about that utility usage? Every single nade thrown as an up nade. Couple of nades thrown in and around the site. I think that's eventually what took Ask out on the smoke, along with Aces moving up there. I think a bit of repositioning because of a red nade symbol, then into the crossfire. Smoke's going out there. We had the Ossa shield, we had the plan. Everything you could look for there in a great setup and a great execute.
So we'll see if Liquid now tries to cool things off a little bit to maintain better control over the situation. We're going to see a bit more mitigation added into this as well. PSK, for instance, onto the Bandit to throw those batteries down and block out the walls. Palu wants to be able to try and play through the smoke as well as the flash entries a little bit more as well. He'll go onto the Warden for that. Reset's also going to bring the laser gates into the fold also in an attempt to slow things down a bit further. Only really had the smoke to try and pull it off on the previous round, and obviously that didn't turn itself into enough. A bit of a miracle that the smoke even made it to a late point in the round, considering he had been down via those nades from below earlier on, but thankfully they were able to bring him up. Still, had to play very cautiously though due to the low HP, and ultimately had to move himself back from that. So getting into round two, we've got Wild spawned out. Let's see what they can show us for this second assault. Karaoke and T-Room. They're also going to bring Ying in for Corey to change up their own execute strategy a little bit.
Something that really impressed me about Wild and the way that they approached it was this ability to get kills from outside to in, and Corey's going to do exactly that again. We're seeing a heavy stack up as Wild storm their way on through. Giesler picks himself up, one onto Palu. Nesk steadies the ship, finding one of his own, but already a plant is going down. Nesk picks up a second, leveling out the man count advantage, but that diffuser is going to be planted. All of a sudden a retake. We've barely even seen a minute, Blue.
Wild throwing everything and the kitchen sink at this execute here, and yes, it does indeed cost them a few players, but things are kept on a relatively even keel, and Wild will be finding this quite acceptable considering they've gotten their plant down onto the ground. Ace is reading into the barbecue stair rotation as well here, but having trouble maintaining the presence. We will see, however, Jay quickly trading things back out, able to take down Nesk and bring it back into a 2v2. You'll also note Reset's incredibly low here. He's going to have to be careful, but it's Jay again to pop back out, take out Resets, and leave it all on PSK once more. Inside of the 1v2, already with heavy damage thrown at him. He will not be able to stay alive here. Wild claim a second round against Liquid.
PSK's been getting some real unfortunate time in there. It's got to be like the second or third time we've flicked onto his POV, and you can just see the sort of outline of the attacker just running down the hole, just crossing the corner before he gets a chance to glimpse. Great aggressive round from Wild. Tristan and Fresh said on the desk, they said, expect explosive plays. Doesn't get much more explosive than a Ying plant coming through. 4 players storming through a breach and already fragging out and getting the job done. Wild doing such a great job in not only the early part of the round, but that utility usage. And for as long as they're going to do it, we're going to have to praise it.
All right, so Wild off to a hot start here, looking to continue it. Already is 1 round away from locking in the guaranteed tie at halftime here, and obviously going to look to try and push it a bit further than that with the way they've been able to control these rounds so far. Liquid finally having enough of the play inside of T-Room. Won't go for a third repeat on that. They do want to try and get a bit more rotation going here. We have seen a lot of teams employing a strategy of even if they lose that first site hold, still moving around to their usual 3-site rotation so that if things don't go well in those first 3 rounds, they can take a pause, get input from their out-of-game leadership as to how they might need to change things after those sites have been played for one time. So this may be part of the reason why Liquid move away from it. Let's be honest as well, things are just not going too well in that T-Room hold. Wild, with their aggression, have been able to burst past it 2 times in a row now. So Liquid wants to see if things will go a little bit better for them on the other side of the map.
Slightly slower start here from Wild, as we've been used to some quite aggressive entries from them up until this point. The Thatcher action coming in here from Corey as well, just to help guarantee that these breaches do get opened. This is the nice thing about WYLDE. It's not as if they're just a one-trick pony right now, Blue. They're doing everything right. You know, they've played a sort of very medium-paced round in round number 1. They've played a very quick round in round number 2. And already we're floating in and around the medium to slow style of round now, and it just shows that level of comfort they've got in being able to meet whatever sort of criteria they wish in the round. We're going to see Aces now start to push himself up these back stairs, greeted by a couple of castle barricades. If you feel like the going's getting tough and you feel like you're getting pushed up against quite quickly, who better than Castle to bring to try and slow down that roll?
Great varieties coming in so far from WYLDE. Going to look to continue to innovate on that as they look to try and lock in things for a third round. Still going to be caught outside of the building for a bit here. Not as much confidence as we've seen play into the previous rounds, but this has all been part of the design, it seems, to get that slow clear going. As you can even see progress being made on the upstairs part of the map. Nesk going to start to lurk around here, though, over by the roof side. Wait to see if he can maybe catch some of these players as they continue to move forward. Indeed, will probably be the first one to get a challenge. Had some support from another teammate a bit closer, but I believe they just got droned out. So that's going to leave Nesk a bit off on an island over here towards Drums.
Nesk is one of the only players on the side of Liquid that's been credited with multiple kills so far. Everyone else has only had one in Palu and Reset, so he's really being relied upon here for a large share, and he's going to grab one there onto Jay. I believe that's the first time we're going to see Liquid actually draw first blood here. WYLDE have previously been very successful on that entry. Players like Corey really leading that charge. It's going to be Cameo to battle one back, as Nesk will be next to fall. Instantly traded, still 45 seconds left, and with 4 players alive on either side, you can see that Liquid are really trying to reserve themselves in the site, but those crossfires are there, Blue, and they're doing damage.
WYLDE seems ready to take these duels now that they've reached the midpoint of their strategy here. A little bit of a trouble getting themselves to this point, especially with how they had to knock out Nesk, but it might be coming together now in the final minute of this round. Second kill has been confirmed as PSK goes fully down. He still have the damage that was done to Palu a few moments ago as well. Gisela going to take a considerable amount also, so Liquid are holding on to an extent, but you can see they're struggling for positioning right now. Just nowhere to play into here, as Gisela as well as Kaneo pick up 2 more kills. Resets now the lone man alive here for Liquid as they try to control the 1v3, but it's going to be so tough. A good start, however, for Resets, but it gets so troublesome past this point. Not going to have the benefit of that angle he used previously. Has to go in. This is really the only route he has to re-entry as well, and Gisela just sitting waiting for him, shuts it down as a third round is claimed from WYLDE.
No information there for Resets really to be playing off, and again, great discipline from this tier 3 side. They have not only been able to battle back from losing that first blood by getting an immediate trade, but in that man count advantage, right at the end of the round, their focus is still to get that diffuser down. And it's just so important, because you look at how much time is left here. Less than 10 seconds when that plan immediately starts to go down right at the end, and with Resets picking up one, it could have been very easy to start panicking and to start losing some of that nerve. But WYLDE, they maintained composure, and they are chaining rounds together here against Liquid. Something that I'm a little bit concerned about, Blue, is the fact that while Liquid have played a little bit of Skyscraper, they've got a reasonable record, 3-1, 3 wins, 1 loss. We're all happy with that. They've got an exceptionally low attacker win rate on the map. This is their defender side, so you would look to see them getting at least a couple of rounds here while they've got a lot of the benefit of being able to redesign the map, you know, get in around, choose your rotations, choose where you want to try and hold. WYLDE almost ahead of them at every turn.
And what's even worse is these are the go-to sites as well for the defensive side. 2 of the upstairs ones are generally where we see the most success on the defensive end of it. We have seen teams also find some good things coming out of their first floor holds also, but considering that we just had the pause coming from Team Liquid, they're more than likely trying to recenter their own strategy for something back upstairs. So we'll have to see if whatever they discussed is going to bear fruit as they move into the 4th round and look to finally pick something up for themselves. Let's get into it though and see. And indeed, we are going to see them continue to move. They're going to go down to barbecue now for this 4th site hold.
Bomb located by attackers.
Liquid feeling like there is no benefit to revisiting a site they have previously been to. They really need to try and find something entirely new and fresh here. Something that they've been struggling with is the up nades. The nades have been very effective from WYLDE, so what better way to combat that than, well, we're going to go to somewhere that you can't throw some up nades. We're going to go to somewhere that there is no beneath, there is no below this site. But instead, you've got to turn your attention vertically. Attacker repicks a thing. And what are we seeing? We're seeing a little bit of soft breach being brought in as well. We've, of course, got the sledge, the thermites instead being switched out. And we're going to see a little bit of a roll swap there between Cameo and Corey as well, as they just swap Thatcher for Hard Breacher. The Dokubi comes in from Aces. So that goes to show they're really looking to try and nail down this roam game.
I like the Dokkaebi pick specifically for what you just mentioned there, trying to lock out players like Nesk, who did slow them down, took about 30 seconds to a minute off the clock from Wild, and prevented them from getting back into that office site a little bit more quickly than they would have liked to. So hopefully going to be able to make improvements on this as they look to set themselves up. And then once they reach a bit more of a risky point in the round, they can easily deploy one of those 2 phone calls just to reassure that there's no one in the area. Palu might be the first one to meet a challenge from the inside of Geisha as well. We'll have to follow up with that a little bit later on in the round. Ask is going to do something similarly from the inside of Karaoke, watching out for the push on the outer balcony.
These repels have been devastating so far from Wild, regularly picking themselves up at least a kill from that repel, catching those Liquid players as they cross in and around the sites. Again, it's a slower round here from Wild. They are demonstrating that restraint. They've already got the wall open, so they don't really need to concern themselves too much with any jobs that they've got to do now. But they are going to have to go up against a slightly different landscape. Palu's brought the Azami this time, which of course gives a lot of benefit in terms of fortifying certain areas and just making it a little bit more difficult for attackers to perform that roam clear. That roam clear is going to start happening from that east side as they start to move through into Drum. And they are going to be met with a little bit of resistance. There's a bit of utility there to get through. It shouldn't take too much, but it's still some utility nonetheless.
Jay, once again, still a bit of strike true with these nades. I believe that comes from down below still as well. This extended roam, still having to fear those up nades. And unfortunately cost them at least 1 player in this situation. Zombie barricades, though, holding things back quite nicely on the edge of that door, but I believe it has been open. Wild doesn't necessarily want to test it, however, as we've already seen that first phone call go out, and now we're going to see the second one get deployed pretty quickly, too. Kaneo able to make home another kill already as he takes out the second member of Team Liquid, bringing them down just to 3. Wild continue to dominate this early round, taking massive control over it, really with only that first entry being lost on the previous round here. Things have looked swimmingly for the Wild roster. Aside from this, they're going to try and continue this. As Corey now moves over towards the staircase, PSK will be able to get 1, but he is instantly traded by Kaneo, bringing it down to just 2 now for Liquid, and 1 already heavily injured as Palu sits at about 20 HP.
Palu could still be in a really good position here. I'm not sure if Wild exactly know where he is. Reset's obviously not in position to take multiple engagements here, given that he's got the DMR. He's getting flashed out downstairs, and Palu has to make a rotation. He was low health, he was only 1 shot, and he's been immediately downed in process. Last kill comes in as, once again, the diffuser was going down. Wild extremely disciplined here, and still streaking rounds on the attack.
Such an analytical approach to these rounds as well, barely missing a step as they continue to waltz right into site after site here, only losing the kind of expected trades along the way, and these are necessary deaths that they have to take just to be able to get into the site and clear out the players from Liquid. But aside from this, they have barely struggled to get things done, and the quick switch up as well helped to speed up the clear with the roam game. Those phone calls coming in from the Dokkaebi gave them the confidence they needed to push all the way up to the Karaoke side of things, where then obviously had to work a little bit harder to clear out the extended game there, but still went well. And Liquid, they've seemingly run out of gas here. Just going to try the 4th and final site they haven't played into yet in the downstairs bedroom, and hope that this will bear fruit for them to try and pick up their first round.
They're really just desperately searching for anything right now. There's no sign of, any sort of significant strategy coming out. When you're plugging up a doorway with 3 Azamis and a bit of barbed wire, things are looking a little bit desperate. You're looking for players to announce that they're coming through that door, and that's great. You get that announcement. But Liquid, I don't even feel like Liquid have been in a gunfight yet. I don't feel like there has been a straight head-to-head gunfight. The info game, exactly. The info game from Wild has just been fantastic. The use of drones, figuring out where these players are. We're about to see a little bit of a run out here from Ask. Is the going getting tough?
He's going to be edging himself in here to try and see if he can maybe catch the repel. We'll have to wait and see how it'll work out. Nade going to come through from the attacking side as well. They read into that far too quickly. As a result of that aggressive position from Liquid is not going to be able to maintain itself. Wild as well has got something special cooked up here. They're going to rush in with 3 players. Not the greatest start to it, though. Ness catches it off. Trades are continuing to roll in. Jay going to be the only one that finds success, but still, the team will get themselves into the site with at least 2 players in. A third will be joining them with the diffuser soon as well, so what a strike from Wild. Problem is, though, they've got to deal with resistance from up on top still, as they did not clear out Palu or any other members of Team Liquid from above.
Palu waited just a little bit too long there for that nade. He eventually gets the kill onto Corey, but the damage has been done. The plant has gone down. Jay and Kaneo scurrying themselves outside. Only Kaneo left. He does have the SMG-12 in hand. It's not the greatest weapon in terms of recoil, but he picks himself up 2. 2 versus 1. Now he keep on coming. Stop feeding him, him, Liquid. Reset, can you get the job done? No, what has just happened?
It's the stand-in as well, clutching it out huge, keeping the record flawless for Wild as they push up with a 4th round that, let's be real, they had absolutely no business taking in the first place.
That is a tilted. Look at Corey laughing his head off there. I'm not surprised. Nobody expects to win that. He didn't even move his feet. He picked up 4 kills. Didn't move his feet. Liquid, what is going on?
1v4 with the bearing as well. Arguably the hardest recoil in this game to control. It's so wild, so difficult to keep a grasp on, but still, they're able to get it done and lock in. Round number 5 for Wild here. 1 away now from the 6-0, and they realistically can easily get it here as we're going back to karaoke again, where Wild have already had success 2 times in a row on the attack.
I'm almost at a loss for words there. Wild are going to be riding high at this moment in time. They're going to be feeling extremely good about themselves. 5 clean rounds on the attack. Liquid had business winning 1 of them and essentially just threw it. You can't call that anything more than what it was.
Yeah.
You can't all peek somebody 1 at a time. You could have just stuck someone defusing. Make it push you.
Liquid, yeah, you could have stopped the defuse fairly easily as well. You mentioned that, right? Palu throwing that impact down just way too late, not able to catch the correct
I think he was waiting
position.
for info.
Yep.
Maybe waiting for info that was just never coming. But even in that 4 versus 1, just get somebody disabling the diffuser and have the other 3 guys just watch. They don't need to get the kill. Do you think people are chasing kills because they're after that kill leader prize?
That 100K extra here, just abandoning the team strategy, going for the solo reward at this tournament. We'll have to see if that was the case for Liquid, but things are just not working out for them so far on this defensive half, and they only have 1 more round to try and claim anything here before Wild gets to take up that mantle. Active resistance coming in over here towards Geisha, however, as they try to block things out. Our attackers should be able to get past that without too much of an issue, though, as we still are going to have the Thatcher to assist the Thermite. PSK able to hold on his own, but not for too long, though. Geisla's in the same room. He's going to be able to trade it out, but Ask, as well as Ask again here, going to have great success with the shotgun, stopping the push coming in from balcony side.
If you're a Liquid fan, don't get too excited just yet. Corey is in a 1 versus 4, and yes, it has been done before. Is he going to be able to pull it off this time? No, it's a little bit too far. Palu finally picks up that final kill, and Liquid get themselves a round on the board. I really feel like we should be going into this half 2-4 for Wild. However, grabbing 1 round back. Liquid's bounce back after such a drastic error, such a drastic misplay in the previous round. The fact that they've come back and they've just, you know, back to business. We're not wasting any time. We're not going to dwell on it too far. Shows that level of experience. Still, you've got to be pleased with Wild at this point.
Oh yeah, absolutely the case. Wild are giving us a show right now, and they're looking to really mark their reputation inside of both the EU scene as well as the international scene by getting this stunning victory against Team Liquid. They're at G8. Wild, of course, now on the defensive side. The half has concluded. I'm going to throw us an interesting one to start off. They're not going to go for the usual expected start over inside the karaoke side of the map. Instead, we will see the play into the office end. Still on the 2nd floor, of course, but just personal preference for this team. No reason why it won't work out for them. Interesting operator selection, too. We are going to see the Clash come out here. This is a pretty claustrophobic site on the main ways that a lot of attacking teams will look to work their way into it. So the Clash actually has some great potential to work out pretty well here, in my opinion.
If in doubt, bring a shield out. It's exactly what you want to be trying to do here. And Wild are recognizing that, hey, we have got an extremely good round advantage, on Team Liquid here. We've got an opportunity to try and get this done quite quickly and without letting too many things slip. So sure, we can try a clash for a round. We've got to stop Kaneo getting so many kills at some point. You know, the guy's 9-2 right now, for goodness sake. Someone's got to slow him down a little bit. You know, you'd look maybe toward Aces or Corey for a few frags, but maybe they will come on the defensive side. We're going to see Liquid's approach here. A little bit similar in a lot of ways. They're going to be bringing the Flores. That's not something that we really did see Wild make too much use of, but Flores fantastic for that drone game, fantastic for that utility burn as well.
So we'll wait and see how Liquid will be able to potentially use that. The Clash as well, waiting for its potential opportunity to make impact. First barricade going to be knocked out there by the Selma to give the players on Team Liquid the room they need to operate on the inside of this building, especially from that repelled angle. The Clash looking to potentially make a play here together with the Jaeger. The Jaeger actually being actively supported by the Clash right now, so an interesting strategy being built up by Wild. Very much want to see this get into a fight and see what exactly Kaneo can do to try and support the position of Aces should that all come to bear. But we still will have to wait some time before we get to that point. Liquid have been quite slow, and with good reason too. They're going to know for sure that Wild will have a lot of confidence being built up off that previous half, and more than likely they're expecting plays like that from Jay. The quick leap out, no support as well because the nearest teammate was working on opening up something else, so it's going to be a free kill for Wild to start out the second half.
Reset's giving himself away a little bit softly there, not anticipating such an aggressive play from Jay. But you know what Wild are going to be like? They are going to be explosive. They're going to be flying themselves out of windows given the option. Nesk looking to maybe try and find that refrag as he looks to approach in through Drum. To the top of those main stairs at the moment. Not really wanting to work too far ahead of those drones though. PSK going to be jumping into a Rotero just to see if there's anything that he can gather. Gets an eyes on the Clash, but not before Jay picks up his second, taking down Nesk.
We're going to see Kaneo try to push himself out here. Allow for Aces to make impact, but once again, Liquid failing at every opportunity here, unfortunately, as tries to swing into Wild territory and immediately is shut down by Gislet. We are going to see another one of these Rotero drones fend off the presence from Aces as well as Kaneo. They're certainly aware of this setup as well at this point. Palu trying to chuck a nade in there. He'll get his opponent out of position as well. That is finally going to flush Jay into a potentially vulnerable spot, but there's not enough follow-through on Liquid to try and take him down, nor is there enough team support to warrant it either. Only 2 players left. The round could very much end right now, but they need to eliminate this player for 2 reasons. 1, he's standing directly in their way of the site, and 2, they're quickly running out of time. Only 20 seconds remain here for Liquid to at least start the plant procedure, or Wild will take this one by default. Jay as well, not even really needing to do much, just maintaining his presence, bleeding time off the clock. They'll go for a team play to be able to knock him out. Great flash maneuver from Liquid, but they just have no time left. Only 3 seconds to get themselves in. This is absolutely not going to happen. Wild will shut it down, and they'll take control of the first of 2 rounds that they need to lock in map number 1 versus Liquid.
Wild more than happy just to let Jay make those aggressive plays. You go make the aggressive plays, we'll stay and keep hold of the site. Liquid got nowhere near inside of that round. Looking a little bit downtrodden at the moment as well, as the going is certainly getting tough if you are on the side of Liquid. They have already used their tactical timeout. They used that at round number 3 after the first 3 rounds didn't go their way. It was a good time to use it, but you can only think that they wish they had another now. Wild on the flip side, they are stood very well to take this first map inside of this best of 3 series. The next map that we will be going to is, of course, Chalet. A map that, by all accounts, is a great map for Liquid. Is it a great map for Wild? I guess time will tell. But there is still the small matter of closing out Skyscraper, and although it is extremely likely that Wild do that at the moment, there is still a chance here for Liquid, but they just haven't looked too sharp yet today. It's almost as if they're just looking a little bit sluggish, in my opinion. They really need to get that little bit more oomph that we used to see in Blue.
We were seeing a point from the desk as well. I think some of us were talking about it before the game started, with the fact that Liquid might have just been underestimating Wild considering the reputation coming into this one. And I think that's really a true point here. Liquid just stunted in quite a few situations here, not really knowing even how to handle the executes from Wild in the first half. Obviously, we've only seen 1 round for the defense, so I don't want to judge them too harshly here, but a bit lost on that defensive side, and unfortunately seems like things are only continuing here now as we move into the second half.
I enjoy the conversation that was going on from Tristan, where Wild have been contacted by a few teams saying, oh, you know, will you be our scrim partners when you get knocked out? Because they're anticipated to be knocked out first.
Wonder if the same offer applies the other way.
The first game of the tournament, it's like, oh yeah, like, we just picked up, you know, 5 clean rounds against Liquid, and we're set to win Skyscraper 7-1. Like, yeah, sure, it's 1 map, but it's looking like it's going to be a pretty good best of 3 from Wild already. It'll be quite kind of nice replying to those DMs tonight, just going, you're all right, I think we'll use you as a scrim partner instead.
So let's see if Wild can complete this set and stun Team Liquid with a 7-1 victory on the first map of the tournament here. Certainly picking into this one with a bit of confidence, and we'll have to see how that carries through onto our second map for Chalet as well. Neo here already going a bit wild with his positioning, trying to look for any of the early clears from Liquid. But once again, Liquid being quite cautious with how they approach this here. Going to have to, of course, deal with the extended setup above the site, which is, of course, in barbecue for this round. Still going to need to clear out areas like Geisha, like Karaoke, which are going to continue to stand in the way of a successful play from Team Liquid here. Wild sits more than ready to handle that challenge, though, and you can see again here from Liquid a lack of confidence in trying to clear this out. They really want to play in for heavy intel before they actually make the play, and that's causing a huge sink of time, just like we saw on the last round. Nearly down to a minute already, and I don't even think we have a single player from Liquid moving into this area of the map just yet.
A lot of pressure on Geisha window. Gisela knows that somebody's going to be there. The nade comes in. Great burn. Good team play from Liquid to get that job done. It was not easy, though, and Nesk really did put himself at a lot of risk. It does, however, pick up that first kill and that opener. The C4 already burnt from Gisela as well, so no longer a factor. Liquid needs to do exactly what Wild did, and that is get those kills from the repels, get that utility launched into the map, and really pick up those, air quote, freebies as often as you can. Resets, he's in a great spot here, just looking to push himself in. Ace is just on the other side of the reinforcement, whiffs a few, but lands onto PSK, finishes off with the shotgun and draws for more, picks up 2, but Resets is in position to shut him down and level things out ahead of this last 25 seconds.
That's the important part of that second kill, evening things out, making this next pickup from Resets. Yeah, it's unfortunate for a while, but it doesn't knock them out of the round entirely. Even moving away from this, we got Choi as well playing with a shotgun here. We're gonna have to see how this one works out, and it's gonna work out brilliantly from the corner. Picks up one, downs another, and knocks them out, leaving it all on to Resets. Less than 5 seconds to play into it as well. Choi just has to hide this one out, and he'll still be ready for the challenge if he made it in time. Not gonna see that come through, and Wild claim control over the first map of this series.
Some of the players from Wild there almost look a little bit stunned, Blue. Like, have we really just done it? That's Liquid. That's the team that
Corey's like still giggling right now. Like, did we just 7-1 Liquid? We did.
Is this the team that everyone like always goes on about being really good? Like, are these the same guys?
Liquid with a rough start, to say the least, on this series, but they still have a few chances to rebound on it. We'll be going to Chalet next, and we still have our third map to potentially play into as well. But Liquid will need to improve their performance massively, as it's all Wild all day for the first map of this series as they dominate Skyscraper to start out this series.
Wild have really impressed me there, and I think they probably impressed a lot of people at home watching as well. Liquid, they're a household name. Wild, not so much. Probably going to be pretty household after this event, though. Everybody watching them is certainly going to get to know who these players are and just exactly what they are about. And it's a great advert for the Tier 3 scene inside of Europe.
Massive shout out to Kaneo as well. Great performance considering the fact that he's just stepping in for this tournament. I think we saw him at one point like 9-2 and probably was able to improve on that a little bit before the end of the game. That'll do it for the two of us for right now, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to throw it back to the desk to break this game down and get us ready for map number 2.
Thank you very much, John and Nix. And I can't believe it. Wild rolled over Liquid on Skyscraper.
There's a couple of smug faces over here, Milosh. I'm not sure. We can believe it, because we expected it to happen. We didn't expect it to happen, but we said that the opportunity was there for it to happen. We know this team likes those kind of maps. We know they play a little bit funky. They go aggressive. They're rushing into sight. They're in sight within 30 seconds in most of their attacks. And Liquid just could not adapt to it.
Yep, they're rushing, they're clutching 1v4s. What can you say? On an attacking start as well. Attack on Skyscraper is the other thing. I thought people said EU was the worst region right now.
Yeah, I don't know. And, for Kaneo as well, he comes in as a sub. We said that he needed to be the one that steps up. He needs to be the one that, they've lost their IGL. He's coming in. There's a little bit of pressure on him. And he pulls out a 1v4 on the SMG-12 on Dokkaebi. He's playing so well. Yeah. And that's like the icebreaker, right?
I mean, we said it ourselves. We were really happy when we saw the map, and I'm incredibly happy with how I saw them play, because I know full well for a fact that this is how these guys practice. So the fact that they brought that, the exact way they practice,
and
to the server against Liquid, of all teams, a team that we hype up and we know is amazing. What can you say? You have to be so proud of them for doing that.
I mean, it's happened. It was a massive win for Wild in this case. And this is the momentum we were talking about just before we started the show, that Liquid but for all intents and purposes, should be the ones winning this series. But should Wild secure the first map, things might start shifting. Now, not only did they secure the map, but they won it 7-1. That's really got to start weighing on Liquid's head and put into conversation of how well prepared are you for this T3 team.
Well, they weren't prepared. Like, even the adaptation inside of the game, we would have expected when Wild picked up like 2 or 3 rounds that Liquid adapt. Liquid are ready for the rushes. They, they change a couple of lineups, they change a couple of positions just to be ready for that. And they just didn't seem ready at all. They didn't seem to adapt in game. So I would, from my hand on heart, I would say they potentially weren't prepared.
And there's some highlights, speaking of preparation, brought to you by Aramco about this matchup and this first map in the series, just to see how exciting Wild were winning the server. Corey had, I don't want to say the game of his career, but at least starting off, one of his best maps he's had, and then you account he did it against Team Liquid.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you could say probably for Kaneo, it's the game of his career because it's the only game in his career that we've seen at this level. So what can you say? Maybe it's only downhill from here for him, but even if still that, well, I mean, that's a defining moment, winning that 1v4 with the Dokkaebi. We're seeing it now. Wild was so fast and so aggressive on their attacks, hitting shot after shot after shot. The crossfires weren't in place from Liquid.
The one thing that I loved about them as well is, I think 3 or 4 times they all ran in the door as it was sledged. So they're just in the building, 4 of them together. They don't wait for Liquid to give them map control. They're like, we're here, we're taking it, we're going to trade each other out if needs be. And they weren't even having to trade each other out because also they turned up on the day they were winning the gunfights. It was just a great approach to how they could throw Liquid off and surprise Liquid. And like Tristan says, we're hearing that this team does this in scrims. This is not just a counter-strat. This is how this team plays. This is how exciting this team is.
Yeah, and we spoke about the bans before the game with not just the maps, but with the operators. To see Liquid ban Maverick and then now see how Wild played the map, would there have even been enough time in half of those rounds to Maverick a wall fresh?
There would have been no point. I'd ban Sledge. Stop them sledging in the doors.
At this point, it was all a washout for Wild. Now, Liquid are an incredibly experienced team. So you're expecting them to kind of pull back and say, okay, it's done, it's out, we'll be ready for the next one.
I think I referenced this in the pre-show, but it was actually almost a carbon copy of this type of scenario occurred in Six Invitational when Liquid played against Cyclops, of Japanese team that we see in APAC North. Liquid played against them and got caught off by Monty, got caught off by Rush Strats, Amaru and in, all that type of stuff. They got caught off the same way they've been caught off here. They managed to regroup very fast with the help of their support staff, between the games, and come back. So we would expect a bounce back from Liquid, but it's just, whether they can get their mental back.
Well, that was map 1 of this best of 3 series. Shout out, by the way, to our sponsors here at Gamers8 and Make It All Happen, VOV and Aramco, bringing you this part of the desk. We're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we'll get yourselves ready for the second map, because you thought that Liquid would be taking it all. You thought wrong. Wild are better than anyone expected, and we've talked about it here. New player, still doing the great work. So what will happen when there is an even bigger challenge? Just before we go to that break, Tristan, do you expect this to go to a map 3?
My heart says no, but I think Liquid are experienced enough. They're going to calm it down. They're going to realize what happened. They're not going to play the same way map 2. And you can't even play the same way on Chalet. You can't turtle like that. You can't hope that teams aren't going to rush you. So I think they're going to relax. I think it's going to take it to a map 3. But border map 3,
it definitely can shake things up. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's take ourselves a very quick break. And when we come back, it'll be time for map 2, Liquid versus Wild.
it would be a surprise if they don't.
Wild in Group A is underway and it's done, but that first map really didn't go the way that we expected it. Wild 7-1ing Liquid on Skyscraper. That's a hell of a way to kick off our show. But map number 2 will be Chalet, and I just want to take a look for just a moment at our map vetoes, just to remind you of how things went down. We got 9 maps in our competitive pool here in Rainbow Six. Border will be our decider, and I don't know if we'll be going to do that yet. But Skyscraper was Wild's comfort pick, Chalet was Liquid's. And I'll turn to my wonderful analysts, Tristan and Fresh, and asking you, what do you think will happen come Chalet? Because we know Wild is starting on the attack, Tristan.
Statistically, Chalet wasn't a map Wild would have gone to, but internally, from my perspective, I think Chalet is probably one of the most perfect maps that they could take Liquid to right now, especially getting side choice.
Yeah, like I say, obviously we only have, well, I only have the external data, right? Liquid only have the external data on this team. They don't scrim them. They're not from EU tier 3. But obviously, you know, Tristan has seen them internally a little bit more in practice, so we can give that a little bit of inside insight. So we know Wild play it, and we know that it's quite an attacker-favored map, and we know that Wild, because Liquid picked this map, will get to choose the starting side. So they are going to choose to start on that attack. We just saw they got 5-1 on Skyscraper, which is a defender-sided map. They're going to an attacker-sided map, so, you know, if you're Liquid, you need to fix up and fix up fast.
Tristan, our final thoughts before we go in?
I think what we can say right now, Wild in the perfect position to do well to win this map, but I'm still thinking Liquid recover from this, mentally recover, reset. I think they take Chalet.
They did the same at Invitational?
Yeah, I don't know, it's hard. I think they've got enough substance about them to do it, but I think Wild do carry that momentum, and that's a dangerous thing.
All right, Wild versus Liquid continues. We go on to Cold Chalet. That'll be a good contrast to what we have. Casters, hello, Blue, hello, X. All yours. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Milos. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, to jump into the second map of this series. Bound to be an interesting one, considering what just happened on our first map on Skyscraper. As you heard the desk saying, Wild shutting it down 7-1 with a final score, and even better, as our desk was mentioning, Wild more than likely going to be starting on the attacking side of Chalet, which allows them to potentially continue their rampage even further into the second map.
There has not been a lot of time in between these two maps. This has been a relatively quick turnaround, as you would expect for a best of 3. You wouldn't expect a big long break, and Liquid haven't had the luxury of time here to really start to recompose themselves. And on the flip side, you look at Wild and you go, well, they've not had the time to lose that momentum either. Doing a fantastic job over on Skyscraper, really letting everybody know just exactly what they are about. And they're going to try and do that again here, no doubt, onto Chalet, and everyone's prediction was correct. Wild are going to be starting off here on the attack.
All right, let's get into it and see if Wild will be able to continue their momentum. As we talked about before, this map looking a little bit stronger on the stats page for Team Liquid overall, but as well, we saw some prowess coming out from them on that previous map as well, and we all know how that worked out. So we'll have to see if those statistics hold themselves to be true. The band so far looking fairly similar to what we saw on the previous map, obviously with the variation of Thatcher now being added in. He was left in the pool for the previous map, but we're still going to have that target band coming in from Wild, and a Zofia. Valkyrie will be their defender band this time, though, as again, she could be far too useful here, especially with the amount of prop clutter that can be seen on the upper parts of this map. Clash actually will get banned out by Liquid, though, and a little bit of a response ban to what we were seeing from Wild towards the end of that map.
I kind of like the Clash ban. I'm a little bit about that. I think it's a good idea. I think it's good to remove that sort of if in doubt pick.
Yep, I think it's very possible that Wild could have potentially gone for it on a few of the sites once they switch over to the defense as well. So that's maybe a smart play for the futures. That was another factor that was very annoying. We saw that round with the Clash played out pretty much perfectly by the Wild roster as well. Liquid stunted by that, as well as the additional position from one of the other members on Wild. So not wanting to deal with that a second time should it come to bear. And of course, that position could be incredibly crucial in areas like the outside of the dining room, upstairs, in that similar spot in the hallway here too. We could see that Clash come to pretty big prowess inside of these rounds, so more likely going to end up being a smart decision from Liquid. We'll have to wait and see, though, as Kaneo going to be bringing an interesting pick here on attacker. Repick, have not seen a whole lot of the play from Sense yet. A lot of teams have been toying with it, but at least from my experience in casting, haven't seen a whole lot of it work out just yet. Let's see if Wild's take on it will find success.
I'll be honest, Blue, that lineup terrifies me. There is not a hard breacher, there is not a can opener. There is an Amaru, a Lion, a Finker, a Sens, and then a Sledge, because why not? This, it's going to be something. That much is clear. It's going to be an execute. They're going to look to try and get a plan down. They've obviously made that decision based off the info that they've gained off the drones inside of that prep phase. They're going to be attacking into kitchen and dining. And it looks as though Liquid, they've largely left that site unoccupied.
This is going to be interesting, too, considering that Wild already with players downstairs in the basement looking for a quick hop to the inside of it. The Sense line going to go down here and allow for Jay to sneak himself through, using the Amaru here as well for the G8 more than anything, but he's not going to find the impact. It's all going to come from Aces instead, who finds the double on the Finka to obliterate the presence inside of the site. Still going to have top downs to contend against here as Ask is trying to find the winning angle to open up, and it'll be resets on an equal plane. He can only go 1 for 1, though, as Gisla hides behind. That Plant sitting himself into a powerful position. He'll pick up one. Kadea will knock out one of the players from upstairs, and now only one remains, and Ask for a 1v4 set against him. Wild are looking to continue their rampage from the previous map, but Ask is going to see if he can go for the clutch here. Quickly running out of time, however, things will look bleak for him as he attempts to go towards it. More than likely, we'll be looking at a 1-0 setup here for Wild.
Pretty difficult task, especially that upside down rappel, the crossfire coming in as well. Wild taking absolutely no chances there. You don't need hard breach if you've got a plan like that. They got themselves straight in. And can we call that an effective use of Sense's Curtain? Can we say that that worked out? It kind of did. Jay was able to sneak up out of nowhere. I've no idea why we didn't get the kills. Aces must have just been quicker to the draw. I mean,
pretty much.
He had the LMG, so he has the advantage there and just being able to dump rounds into the problem. Liquid, again, how many times do we think that they are going to get caught flat-footed like that? Because they look stunned again. They looked like, why are these guys pushing so quickly? It's like, you've seen them on Skyscraper.
The other thing too.
They're going to be quick.
Yeah, the other thing too, right, is they can't necessarily rely on that info. Yeah, they've been quick, but as you mentioned at one point during the Skyscraper match, they're really good at varying it as well.
Yeah.
We saw that mid-paced round at the beginning. They did have a few rounds where they slow-played it as well. So Liquid's just like a little bit lost right now, trying to figure out exactly what to expect on each round. And with these crazy strategies coming in, like the Sense play, bolstered by the Amaru coming in with the G8 as well, it's just so hard to predict when, and more importantly, where the executes from Wild are going to come from.
And then they just flip-flop right back. And all of a sudden it looks like we've got a really typical lineup for a Chalet. Yeah, you've got the Twitch that's thrown in there as maybe a little bit of an off-pick, but Twitch can be really handy for dealing with those bulletproof cameras, any little bits of utility. The shock drone's quite good in this current meta, so you're going to be looking to try and take a bit of advantage of that. You've got a ton of nades. You've got 8 nades knocking around. Like, this is a great lineup here. You don't really need too much more than a Maverick, especially when you're going to be attacking into bar and games.
So slow build up this time for Wild. Nice catch there as well, getting rid of the bulletproof, not going to allow them to play off of that later on into this round. He's will continue to see if he can find other pieces of utility with that Twitch drone, specifically down below here. Don't want to get tripped up by anything as they try to move themselves into the site. If they can knock out things like the ADSs supporting the billiards hop in early on here, it'll just make that execute all that much easier for Wild to play into. And we can see, in fact, players already getting themselves prepped for this. A few just outside of the library windows looking to make their entry there. But as we've seen in so many of the past matches, oh no, this nade going in. Thankfully, the chassis still in the way there. So resets not going to be eaten up too heavily by that, but this is going to be an interesting one. PSK, though, from up on top, catches one. Aces with a quick response, and that's pretty much activated Wild. They don't have the setup they need anymore, so they're just going to go for it here, working their way in. It's worked out well so far, and Jay with a quick correction to save Ace's life as well. Knocks out at PSK and takes him down. Palu as well as Nesk, now the last two standing, and Palu already eliminated. It's just so aggressive and so quick from Wild. Liquid cannot keep up, and a second round quickly goes on the board from Wild as a result of it.
It's been a long time since I've seen Liquid dropping like flies like this. It is one after another, and even when something doesn't necessarily go Wild's way and they lose out on the Maverick or they lose out on making, you know, a little bit of rotation or something like that, there's a great little bit of counterplay with some vertical onto those main stairs. It doesn't even phase them. They're just like, right, next step, what we're going to do next, we're just going to move straight through into the site, we're going to deal with Ask, then we're going to look to go upstairs. Everybody is getting cut off at every single turn. It's deja vu of map number 1, and I honestly thought, and I don't know if part of me was maybe just hoping it because I really want Liquid to play well. Part of me thought, is it just Skyscraper, right? Are we just dealing with, you know, Wild have managed to sneak a map through that, you know, Liquid weren't really anticipating. But this is Chalet. This is a map that everybody plays. Everybody can play Chalet.
And WYLDE's going to continue to evolve their playstyle a little bit here. Still a lineup that we've seen in the past with a few variations to it that I think are going to make a few people at home happy. Geisla specifically going to be bringing the Glass into the fold. Still 5 seconds to wait for it to be confirmed, but WYLDE has not been really trying to trick us with these repicks at all so far in the series. So this one is more than likely going to land, and that will be more than likely we'll have WYLDE trying to prioritize a smoke execute while keeping the Glass on the outskirts, either right over by Snowmobile or in another position where he can use that long-range weapon to try and pick these players off through the smoke wall.
Also, Shields there getting set up outside of Garage, getting prepared for what is no doubt to come, which is going to be removal of the Mute Jammer, removal of the Cade, destroying that utility, and then looking to try and get it all open.
Ball might get this one, actually, yeah.
Oh, we did get a little bit of a trick there. We did have resets up on that top floor. There's a great little Cade Claw spot just underneath that window. It's a bit of a pain to deal with as an attacker as well. You know, obviously, if you've got something like a Thatcher in the mix, easy street. But there is no Thatcher here. Just takes a little bit more time. You've delayed 50 seconds to a minute, but the breach has still been open and WYLDE have achieved that objective. Now they can look to start using this Glass, and this is where things get a little bit scary.
The lost second hard breach is not going to be the end of the world here for WYLDE as well. That's the main wall they needed to get open on this round. Yeah, it'd be nice to have that second one in the pocket to maybe open up the backup wine or something else for WYLDE, but they're not going to be losing any sleep over that extra one that was wasted due to the nice trick that came out from Team Liquid. Liquid's patience, though, paying off in this round as we are going to be able to see Ness catch Aces trying to move in to add himself over to a main stairs angle for the execute. That's now going to hold up the rest of the team's play more than likely as well, as they no longer have that second angle to support them as they move in. In fact, it's going to be working against them. Reset still playing on the main stairs, going to be standing directly in the way of this swing, so WYLDE can't really justify going for it right now. They're going to try and use the OSA shield to push them just that extra bit further, but the confidence is not here right now from WYLDE. The good news is, still a lot of time to find a way to get passes. We're sitting over a minute remaining here. They're not at any stress for time just yet, and we're going to see Joy move in from the other, Jay move in rather, from the other side here to try and add another element to this if he can work himself over to that main stairs position.
Something that WYLDE needs to be cautious of here is that this whole plan hinges around smokes. They've lost all of their smokes now. They've used them and they haven't pushed off the back of it. There's still a couple of C4s knocking around here for Liquid. Nesk is going to get that trade off onto Jay, but not before Resets was downed on main stairs. It's likely not to matter at this point, though, as Ask is going to join the party as well from Blue. Corey, he's left quivering behind one of his OSA shields. 35 seconds left to go, and everybody knows where he is. C4 comes out. It's going to be Parlu to swing with the shotgun there to finish things off. A flawless round for Liquid. They did get a player down, but it was not a confirmed kill. That is very much needed here for Liquid in the current state of things.
Yeah, very huge confidence boost should be coming in after that win from Liquid. I like the theory behind the execute from WYLDE as they continue to show us some pretty innovative strats here, but ultimately way too reliant on that initial entry from Aces to be able to establish the stair position. To be fair, WYLDE had good reason to believe they could make that entry given the previous performance up until this point in the game, but now probably gonna have to cool things off a little bit, as Liquid does have some pretty powerful positions to fend off these types of clears, so WYLDE more than likely gonna need to commit multiple players to those types of plays in the future, meaning that they won't be able to go for these kind of all-in-one executes like we saw there outside of Snowmobile.
Let's see if that does something for the confidence on Liquid here, and really what it does to WYLDE. We've not seen them get beat down too much yet. We haven't seen them when, you know, they've just come off the back of a losing round, or they've just come off the back of a couple of rounds not going their way. Everything has gone their way so far, so we need to see what happens when they essentially get punched in the face. You know, what do? They get back up and they start swinging, or do they sort of just lie down and let things happen to them? So let's see how round number 4 plays out. Liquid, they're going to be going back down to Bar Games. Not a site that they were too successful in previously, but they really got overwhelmed quite quickly by WYLDE. Struggled to keep control of key areas such as upstairs. They lost the downstairs to the Maverick. Essentially, kind of a bit of Maverick trick, really, on those main stairs, just opening up that bottom line. It's very Eminem-esque, seen from inside of EU. They really pioneered it inside of Challenger League, and a lot of teams have adopted it since. Slightly different approach this time from WYLDE. They're going to be bringing the Habana. It's looking a little bit more traditional.
Huge emphasis on the nades again from Wild inside of this first minute of play as they brought, I believe, 3 operators with the 2 nades in pocket, so a total of 6 to be chucked out. Most have actually already been used here. Aces sits with the only one remaining. Unfortunately, the damage just hasn't been there in the way that Wild would have liked for it to have been, with really the only impact being over there on the bottom left against Resets, knocking him down to about 50% of his health pool. It's going to be an attempt to try and open up the wall inside of Library, and Jay will attempt to push behind it, but it's going to be a 1-to-1 exchange here. Thankfully, Wild's able to overwhelm the Library position, and that's an important pickup there. Gisla catching Nesk as he attempts to really put down the execute before it begins inside of Library. It's going to cause Liquid to scramble back towards the site and try to put up their best defense now in the 3v4.
So much time here for Wild to work with as well. Just over half of the round remaining. Easily going to be inside of the Library. Time enough to jump into the shock drone, see if there's any utility that he can discover, any information that he can gather, whilst the rest of his team looks to try and make waves elsewhere. And meanwhile, Liquid, they're left sweating on the site. It's a long time to be caught in that closet area. It's a long time to be playing a corner inside of games. And while there might be a couple of Toxic Babe canisters left, there's still more than enough time for those to get burned. Ace has got a really good angle here through the hatch inside a Library, knows that there's going to be a player down there inside a closet. Reset's just in the middle of bar, managing to find a great shot through the floor onto Gisla, the Twitch above, levels things out to 3 versus 3, but Palu is on the flank. Corey watching these main stairs. Could he get caught looking the wrong way here?
Kaneo ready for the peak, but unfortunately the player from Liquid doesn't fully commit to it, so not going to be able to lock in the kill just yet, but they do have some great intel now to play off of, especially if Kaneo is going to be able to stay in that position. Won't be the case, though. They'll start to move away from it, as does Aces, so they'll abandon the Library position entirely. Another player moving in from the basement stairs, but Aces goes for the check on the top down. It'll work out, catches him. Corey finds other entry deeper in the site as well. It finds Resets trying to move across the bar. Leaves it all on to Ask. Now, he'll get one, but it's not enough as Aces instantly trades it back out. Wild have been so good inside of these team fights. Liquid just cannot contest against them. So it's another round from Wild, a quick rebound from them as well as they retake control over the matchup at 3-1 here on our second map.
Nothing really getting in their way at the moment. There's not a lot of things that are slowing them down too much. A lot of the problems that they're facing mid-round are just very quickly becoming non-issues from positioning and the fact that you don't often get them all committing to getting in the site. Something that both Skyscraper and Chalet share in common is the fact that there's a lot of potential outside to in. You think about other maps, you think about something like Oregon, there's a couple of spots that you can get outside to win. Clubhouse, there's a couple of spots you get outside to win. But on Chalet, you can very often keep yourself on a balcony, outside of a window on Library, on a rappel, and you can be relatively safe. And that's something that we see Wild doing time and time again. Very often finding picks off it and at least finding information and getting utility through on it as well. So they're not always putting themselves in those direct gunfights. Something that's really giving them a little bit of an edge here. And it's a classic trait from, you know, you see Team Liquid play Chalet in the very same way. It's no secret that that's how you play Chalet. It's just something that Wild are doing very well.
Wild as well seems to be really sure of themselves when it comes to the first minute or so of play. We have seen them slow down a little bit as Liquid has found a bit more success from their extended game inside of that mid-round portion. That's causing some delay from Wild, but the good news is they play out their early rounds so quickly that they're usually left with 2 minutes or more to play out the rest of the round, meaning that, as you were mentioning, all those concerns in the mid-round are usually a moot point because they just have so much additional time to deal with it, among other factors that usually end up playing into their favor. About to see the first push come in from Wild here as Reset's going to be trapped a little bit inside of the corner. Should be able to transition from behind the wall if he would like to, but at the same time, you've got Aces pressing in against the back of this hold as well, so Resets now needs to be very, very careful with his positioning. One wrong step in the wrong direction, and he'll be knocked out.
I like how the fact that Aces doesn't challenge that as well. Just immediately backs off. Sees, yeah, there's a little bit of resistance there. I don't really quite fancy taking the engagement. I've still got a nade left. I've still got a drone left to play. I'm not going to try and play that life all too heavily. And instead, we're going to start to switch things up and we're going to start focusing elsewhere as a team. Jay in his primed favorite position there to hop himself up through the trophy hatch. Corey taking a lot of damage. PSK and Palu sharing a couple of kills there to start things off, but Jay storms on through. GA in hand. The hatch open above could be a little bit of a problem, but the kills have immediately leveled out. Wild trading blow for blow. Again, the diffuser easily retrievable there by Jay, and with Liquid still upstairs, they're going to have to rely on either vertical angles or making that rotation to try and get themselves in. Wild have got full control of the site here, Blue. Jay's almost just deciding where and if he is going to plant. He knows that Liquid have that vertical control. There's a shotgun up there as well, so there's very quick access to a lot of holes and a lot of ability to shut a plant from going down. Giesler trying to get himself into position now as well, but there's still a minute left. It's a very strange predicament to be in here where the defenders are saying, look, go plant in the site, we've got a shot at you above, come and get us.
You've got to respect this boldness of play coming in from Wild as Jay finally gets a winning position where he can find a plant. They may be able to get a slight edge against him, but they're too focused on getting the Toxic Babes out right now to try and stop the plant. It will not work out. In fact, it goes down onto the ground, and Wild have it locked in. Liquid now need to make the play, but Jay all the much ready for it. Good news is Liquid will be able to maintain some control, but Gisla knocking out a second member of the Liquid roster, leaves it all on to resets here in what is essentially a 1v2. There we go. Confirms the third, brings it into the actual 1v2 now. Should have a good ability to creep up onto the player inside of Trophy, only just now catching the diffuser as well. Gonna try and just go directly for it. Where's the repeat? Do they have him? Gets him off the case at least, and Geeksla sets himself up for the final kill as Wild continues to maintain control over the map and the series, surging ever further ahead of Liquid.
Panic stations then. I thought the recess was going to stick it. I was like, please, someone push him. You can't lose this. It was a great plan. Inspired plant location from Jay. You know, what do you do if there's a shotgun above? Plant underneath a bed. Plant underneath something really big that they can't get through. Plant underneath a kitchen cabinet. You know, find yourself, you know, a real sort of coconut bra spot inside of that kitchen and get yourself scurried away to get the plant down. You really need to start getting creative, and that's exactly what Wild did. Still storming away with things here. Entering round number 6, and where have we seen this scoreline before, Blue?
Very, very familiar sights right now here. The good news for Team Liquid is that they are going to be able to return to that basement hold, the only site where they've been able to find success so far in this map. Wild, we'll see if they go for the same jump-in strategy that we saw previously, although it does look like things are going to vary a bit more. We'll have the Amaru back in play. It's working out quite well for Jay, but he's going to end up swapping away from that over towards the line. Things are quickly taking shape here for the Wild lineup on the final round of play for this half. We are going to end up with something a bit more normal to attack this site with. And that's a bit of a far cry from what we've usually been seeing from Wild, as they've been constantly surprising us with their strategy. I really have to respect the kind of ignorance to what is a normal rule of play in Siege, where you generally don't go for these types of sites when your opponents have an upstairs hold above you. You almost have to clear that out, it seems. It's just an unwritten rule of competitive Siege, but they violated that like 3 to 4 times now over the course of this series, and I believe have won every single time they've done it as well.
It's really strange, isn't it? It's like, oh, they're holding above, we better go above. And Wild just like, oh, they're holding above, we'll go below.
Yeah.
No worries.
That's not a problem for us.
Let's just attack where they're not.
Just like, plan under the bed.
Sounds easier. Sounds a lot easier to just go where they're not. Let's see if Wild are a little bit more successful here. They haven't got that same reliance on the smoke play coming off here. They've obviously not brought the glass, so they're not going to be looking to try and take too much advantage of that. Still going to have the Oster shield that they're going to be set up behind. It looks as though we could be seeing a quick execute come on through as Jay kicks things off with a kill over onto PSK. Plant already going down in typical Wild fashion as 2 kills have already flown in. Nesk, oh, you hate to see it. Giesler just holding the corner. Picks Nesk up on the retreat down into side. These aren't even gunfights, Blue. This is just absolute execution here from Wild. Ask, he's going to pick himself up one. The Lion Scan will give him away, and the call-outs as well. And look at the crossfire that's on his location. Picks himself up a second. Looks hopeful, but 20 seconds left on the clock. What realistically are you going to be able to do here when you are getting peppered? Ask gets a great headshot over onto Corey, and this must be where Wild starts to panic ever so slightly, but the time is running extremely low. Ask, he keeps hitting shot after shot. That Oster shield is going to cause quite the problem for him, and he's likely going for impactless frags at this point. No longer is there enough time to disable that diffuser, and instead he can just look to try and pad his score sheet, picking himself up a quad, but it won't mean anything.
Trying to go for that MVP award maybe at this point is it maybe all Liquid can try and reach for in this series. Just way too much control continuing to be shown by Wild as they absolutely ignore the defensive setup inside of the site this time and go directly for the execute. Bolstered as well by the Lion play coming in by the car garage as well. They did not expect such a dramatic split to their player base, and we immediately see the car garage push pick up 2 kills, draws all the attention from Liquid away over towards that player, and leaves a massive window open for the rest of the team to move in through the normal route by snowmobile.
Dangerous times ahead for Liquid. Fortunately for them, there is a lower bracket if things do come to it, but I didn't think what we must be only a couple of hours in at this point that I'd be talking about Liquid and a lower bracket in the same sentence. But WYLDE are very well posed right now. They've got a 4-round lead here, and they're looking to try and take Chalet in the same fashion they took Skyscraper. They already lead the best of 3 by 1 map. 2 rounds here would see it said and done.
Let's see how WYLDE is going to look to try and lock things down, just as they did on our previous map as well. Going to start out the usual beginning over here inside our site to try and hold things around the kitchen site, try and hold things out for WYLDE. Interesting initial site choice, but I've already seen WYLDE depart from the normal expectations quite a few times inside of this series, so it'll be no surprise for us to see it once again. Operator lineup is going to be somewhat of what we expect, especially if Ace is there. We're going to stay quite mobile with the Oryx, able to hop himself up and down through the hatches if support is needed upstairs or down.
Liquid have got a chance to reset themselves here, switching over onto the attack. Got a little bit of a slower start here as Resets is likely going to try and nook himself in. There has been a bit of drone work that's gone on ahead of him, so he's going to have a rough idea as to what exactly is going to be clear, as this fact-finding stage of the round for Liquid is taking its time as Resets eventually transitions his way into Garage. Gisela, primed and ready though, could get gifted to Reset. It's a nice little gift there to drop on your lap. And Gisela, no real way of knowing exactly what was going on there. You're just making a quick rotation.
Just perfect timing more than anything for Resets there. Walks right into Gisela as he's making that rotate. And as you said, is gifted that initial kill. So Liquid certainly going to be happy about it as they strike true at the beginning of this round to set up the 5v4. Resets also with now full control over the basement, meaning that WYLDE are going to have to watch out for that potential lurk to come in, of course, through the front stairs as well as the back ones at some point in this round here. Rest of Liquid looking to potentially move themselves in through the front door and eventually into library. Those will, or eventually into dining room. Those will have to wait and see exactly how they try to go for that over this next minute and a half of play. Meanwhile, WYLDE just continuing to keep their composure close to the site here, waiting for the next opportunity to strike on the defensive end.
Attackers have located a bomb.
Around a minute left, and we're going to start to see Ask getting that wall open again. Does actually get tricked off there for the meantime. Still have 1 left in pocket, so can look to wait for a little bit of backup here, and he's going to call for a nade from Palu to get sent over the top and just remove Corey's ability to be able to play there. Nice. Corey plays very well, though, and actually runs in toward the breach, knowing that the nade was going to explode behind. And that is going to make it very difficult, and I would dare say impossible, for Liquid to make their way through. No can opener and no alternate hard breach. It's not the problem you want to be facing with 40 seconds left, now being restricted to only pushing yourself through single doorways. Reset is still trying to fight his way out of this basement area, is taking a little bit of damage. Jay's got a horrible angle down onto him through the floor, really trying to make him work for every single pixel visible. Jay is eventually going to find that kill as Nesk swings on in upstairs, but it's a little bit too late. Resets has already been taken out there, and Palu has to fall, and kills continue to rain on through as the ACS-12, you can just hear that ripping up your eardrums. It's going to be responsible for picking himself up. Another Ace is going to be holding on now. Got the trophy stairs, knows it's likely going to be a player that's looking to make that rotation down. As we see an Oryx dash on into sight, but the round again just fizzling out into not a lot.
So that's the penultimate round for WYLDE. Only 1 more to go, and they'll be able to lock in absolute victory for themselves in 2-0 fashion as well against one of the most storied teams in Siege history. This is certainly going to be an interesting storyline in the making for WYLDE if they're going to be able to continue this prowess through the rest of their group run, maybe even claim the top seed from it if they can win out the second matchup here. Beautifully played, especially again from Corey here. The proactive move forward to throw out and get the impact trick to prevent the dining room wall from being open, and then even subverting the expectations, as you mentioned, bringing out the ACS-12. A lot of play with those kind of like unpicked shotguns that we very rarely see. As remember, we had the Jaeger shotgun picked up, and it clutched the end of the game back on Skyscraper as well.
You wouldn't have done that with a 416. You just wouldn't. You wouldn't have hit the shots. You would not have had that surefire killing power. Timeout for Liquid, I guess. Is it too late?
minutes might be here. As we're
Feels late.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see what they could potentially do. But, I mean, only one round of a mistake you can make at this point. Wild, you can even see their coach as well, probably just calling out, guys, we just need you to keep doing what you're doing at this point. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more intense than that, but still, Wild not a whole lot to correct on here as they have just looked nearly flawless inside of this play so far.
There's probably going to be a lot of calm down. You know, just don't lose your mind here. You know, you've got a great opportunity. You've got a fantastic chance. You're only 3 minutes away from it. Don't mess it up. Just take your time and play the siege that you know that you're able to play.
And they look so happy right now, especially for Corey's sake as well. It's been a while since I've been able to commentate Corey as well. Last time I remember doing it, I'm pretty sure he was on the Stream roster, so it's been quite a while since, at least for my sake, I've been able to see him on a stage like this. So good to see him back and excelling as well. Looking to try and claim this stunning victory versus Team Liquid in what could very well potentially be a double 7-1 2-0 knockout to send Liquid down to the lower bracket.
Well, there'll have been some stern words there between Team Liquid, I imagine, in that short break, figuring out how they want to try and approach this. How do you solve a problem where you're coming up against a team that is just getting better timing than you, one step ahead at every turn, and there is nothing that you can do to stop it? You've got to try and gain some composure from somewhere. Is the Lion pick going to be that composure? Aces maybe looking to kick things off with a cheeky little spawn peek here, which, I mean, that would just almost cement it for me as just it's really not Liquid's day if they fall for that trick.
That's the tilter for Liquid if it hits true here. It does seem like Liquid's watching out for it, though, as I see the window get open quite quickly. So they'll be paying attention towards it. More than likely, Ace is not able to find much from that position, so he'll peel away from it pretty quickly and just go for the more standard hold inside of Library, especially now that he hears the repels. His moment is gone, and he will have to fall back to that outer wall spot if he is going to play for the extension here, but that's not even the case. It's going to go even further away from that, as it looks like Library was left completely unreinforced this time around.
Palu taking a lot of damage there as these kills do work from inside to out as well as outside to in. The Lion Scan not doing enough to deter half of his HP from disappearing before his very eyes. Resets, he's crouch walking himself in a fairly dangerous location. He's got himself at the bottom of West Main stairs. Jay going to open things up with a kill onto Nesk, a player that just hasn't been activated yet at all. Sitting negative, double negative even, on the scoreboard right now. Resets maybe going to find himself a little bit of success here. He knows that that drone has just been shot, so he knows that there's someone immediately behind the wall, but can you afford to take the 1-versus-1 gunfight? Well, he takes it and he loses it.
Jay's been another player here that we haven't talked a whole lot about, but has been a consistent rock inside of this series for Wild, picking up the pretty crucial kills too, as he's usually the first to strike in a lot of these situations. He was that Lion moving in from Car Garage in the previous round. Finally, Aces is going to be able to get himself inside of this puzzle as he knocks out PSK. 2 players standing here for Liquid, 5 still up for Wild. It's Palu and Az trying to clutch it out here and pick up the first of 5 rounds in a row that would now be needed for Liquid to get themselves back into this map and, more importantly, into this series here. Palu going to see if anything presents itself on the top-down angle, but won't be the case. In fact, Wild are watching out for that if he tried to go for the push. Ask, in the meanwhile, is going to renegotiate his own position over here towards the outside of the snowmobile garage. They might be able to get a slight pinch onto the site as a result of this opening, but still, Palu doesn't have the best angle to work into this from, and also you'll start to see Wild reinforce their own positions here to try and avoid this fate.
Not going to be an easy task here for Palu and Ask to pull off. Got a couple of nades. They have a chance. You can hear that just get eaten up there by the ADS. Ask taking a huge amount of damage as well. Another ADS going on down. Jay, he picks himself up the 3rd on the round onto Ask. This could be it for Wild. We could be staring at a flawless round. No, Jay gives himself away. It likely won't mean too much because that's the first that Palu needs to find out of many. The diffuser cold on the ground. 15 seconds left to go, and everybody knows he's going to be pushing these main stairs from blue. Corey shuts him down. Wild, what a performance there. They have demolished Liquid.
7-1 for the 2nd map in a row. Wild more than earning their position in the winner's match here from Group A. They excel forward, barely struggling along the way, and it's all smiles across the Wild roster here as they pick up a massive win against one of the most storied rosters in Siege history. Just not ready for their matchup here today, so Liquid will go down into the lower bracket. Wild will continue to ascend here in the upper bracket as they sit just one more match away now from a position in the finals.
You can just see what this means to the team as well. They are extremely hard-working group of individuals and as a team playing inside of GSA, one of the most formidable teams inside of GSA that there is. I think they're currently sitting at second inside of their national league. And to come out here and to do that to a team like Liquid, I was coming on here expecting to say lines like, oh, everyone has to go through the rite of passage of getting slammed by Nesk on LAN. I can't say that.
Can't say that anymore here as we see Liquid struggling to a pretty tremendous extent inside of that game as well. I think the theory that we talked about both on the desk and in the pregame where Liquid may have just not expected this type of performance to come out from WYLDE. I think that's pretty much true here as WYLDE continue to not only stun Liquid, but quite innovative in the way that they approached quite a few of these rounds. We talked about it at one point. Their ignorance of the upper floor holds was working out at least like 3 to 4 times in their favor, and quite a few things beyond that as well continue to play into the team's favor, despite it departing from the realm of the normal meta here in Siege.
Yeah, and that was one of the more unpredictable things that Liquid really won't have been expecting. They won't have been expecting shotguns that much. They won't have been expecting players to just totally ignore top floor holds and go for side pushes. They won't have been expecting quick rounds thrown in with slow rounds, thrown in with medium place rounds. It wasn't the play of a tier 3 team. It was the play of a much more experienced side.
Great, ladies and gentlemen. I believe that is going to send us down to the stage, though, for an interview. So let's head over to our host to speak with our winners.
Welcome back to the main stage where I'm joined by Corey from WYLDE. Congratulations, what an incredible performance. A great display of team synergy as well. You've got to be happy with that. Do you feel like the pressure is now slightly off now that you've started the competition with this kind of win?
I feel like we had no pressure at all. Like, we came in here as a tier 3 team, we take this as a present, we take this as a gift, we've been treated incredibly well, and there was never any pressure on us, so it was very easy and very nice to play.
معنا كوري من فريق وايلد بعد ما قدروا يفوزون الجيم الاول، وكان سؤالنا الاول له انه هل الفوز هذا وخر عنكم كل الضغط اللي ممكن يجيكم في المباراه بما انكم خلصتوا الجيم الاول بفوز كان جدا قوي صراحه؟ قال لا، اصلا من الاساس ما كان عندنا تحت ضغط، من اول ما جينا كل شيء كان تمام وكل شيء كان مريح بالنسبه لنا، ولا في اي شيء ممكن يسبب علينا ضغط، فالضغط من الاساس ما كان موجود.
I mean, the fact that you mentioned that expectations were kind of like out the window, there was no pressure. Did that allow you to play the game that you wanted to play? And also, I have to say, Kaneo's 1v4 throughout map 1, did that kind of give you guys that extra boost of confidence to just go on the attack?
100%. Like, all the attacks, we took the risks. We were very, very confident in our own gameplay, and we were very confident we will win it. And then Kaneo pulls off this amazing 1v4. Like, that's incredible. I've played so many tournaments and I've never seen a clutch like that, especially from a sub. That's one thing you have to mention. He's our sub. So, crazy.
زي ما احنا عارفين في الماب الاول قدر احد اللاعبين من فريق وايلد انه يخلص احد الراوندات بنتيجه 1-4. كانت هي 1-4 لكن قدر يسوي كلتش لحاله. فكان السؤال هو يعني هل الكلتش اللي هو سواه هذا قدر يوخر عنكم شوي من البريشر؟ لكن كان الجواب انه بالعكس، يعني الكلتش اللي احنا شفناه اصلا هذا مع كل ما البطولات اللي لعبتها معاه ما قد شفت كلتش زيه، وكان كلتش فعلا رهيب واعطانا بوست للكونفدنس، والثقه العاليه اللي موجوده عندهم زادت بزياده وقدروا يخلصون الجيم بالطريقه اللي احنا شفناها.
Okay, Corey, let's look ahead, okay? Currently the B stream is playing and we've got Damwon Kia going up against SSG. Have you got any preference who you go up against, potentially, and why?
Not necessarily. Like, we're confident we can beat anyone. I think SSG, especially with a trial and with the current situation they're in, are a bit weaker than Damwon, so I think going against SSG would be nicer, but I'm very confident Damwon will take it.
زي ما احنا عارفين في الستريم الثاني معنا في البطولة في مباراة داموان كيا، وزيادة على كذا ضدهم فريق سبيس ستيشن جيمنج. فكان السؤال مين الفريق اللي تفضل انك بتواجهونه، خصوصا انهم الان بتخلص مباراتهم في البث الثانوي؟ لكن كان الجواب انه احنا نشوف انه فريق سبيس ستيشن جيمنج ادائهم كان نازل شوية عن اللي احنا شفناه بالعادة، لكن بنفس الوقت احنا نتمنى ان نواجههم، بس ما عندنا مشكلة لو واجهنا فريق داموان جيمنج بدون اي مشكلة.
Corey, thank you so much for joining us on stage for your post-match interview. You guys played incredibly well. Go have a rest before your next match-up. And everyone in the Gamers8 arena, please give it up one more time for WYLDE. We're going to be throwing to a very short break, but don't go anywhere because we have our next match on the A stream coming up very shortly.
لا تبعدون اعزائي المشاهدين والحضور، احنا ناخذ فاصل بسيط وبعد الفاصل هذا نبي نرجع لكم في الجيم الثاني ما بين الفرق اللي بتكون متقدمه معكم. خلونا نخليها لكم مفاجاه، فعلى طول فاصل ونرجع لكم.